Hello, hello. Welcome to another Crypto Talk with Brianna and Scott. I'm Scott. Hi, Brianna. How you doing today?
Hi, Scott, and everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm doing really good today. Got my green jacket on. I don't know if you can tell, but it is green. So I am showing up for the day. How are you doing?
Good. Good. Yeah. St. Patty's Day. I like St. Patty's Day because it feels like spring is around the corner. At least here in Montana, I think we might. Hopefully, we're done with the snow. You never know. Now, when I used to live in Kansas City, by now it was nice and warm and getting ready for tornado season there. But it's
Mm.
all good.
Mm-mm. No tornadoes for me. I'll take snow every day over tornadoes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's great. Sun is shining today. My sister's 40th birthday is today. I'm looking forward to getting out and celebrating that with her.
Oh, good.
So yeah,
Yeah,
great
that's
day.
fun. Good day. What are you going to be talking about today on crypto?
I have mainly my focus has been on these three bank collapses. I'm going to be bringing forth the ripple effect that it had on stablecoins, also the action that some investors took in response, and also I have some statements from Charles Hoskins, founder of Cardano, that I found to be kind of interesting. So if we get to those, I'll share those as well.
Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, I've got news on the Arbitrum airdrop, and this is big news for me. And also, I've got a little interesting article about how much energy does AI consume. A lot of talk
Ooh.
about how much energy does Bitcoin consume, but AI consumes a lot also. And
Mm.
what else? And of course, yeah, we're going to talk about the banking crisis and how it's affecting crypto. And crypto's up, uh, and it's a little bit interesting. So we're going to unpack that today.
Cool.
All right,
Yeah, that
cool.
all
All right,
sounds good.
so let's do it. Let me get your screen on here. I see this nice picture of a big old diamond.
It
Love it.
is. I know. Isn't that nice?
It is. What do you got going?
Okay,
What's a diamond all about?
so as many of us know, with this last week, the last 2 weeks, three banks collapsed. One being Silicon Valley, second being Signature Bank, three being Silvergate. This naturally led to much uncertainty and much volatility, leaving investors with the question of where do I stash my cash? So, for those who are not well versed yet in the crypto space, stable coins play a significant role in both trading and investing because they're a great way to store your investment in something that has no volatility, meaning it just holds at that same price so that we can move it out with the market if we decide to, store it somewhere where it's going to maintain its price, and then it's just ready to go when we're ready to use it again for investing. So stable coins are backed one to one, or that's the goal. However, due to the bank shutdown, we saw USDC lose its peg to the dollar, dropping as low as 87 cents at one point. It did recover, it came back up to its dollar peg. But what did some investors do who fled from stablecoins? They bought tokenized diamonds.
No,
So,
wow.
in fact, yeah, new concept for me. So,
Yeah.
the trading volume of tokenized diamonds actually jumped almost 300% over the weekend, with gold jumping up 5%. So, there's this company called Diamond Standard. They are a blockchain company that tokenized and standardized the diamond market to allow investors to buy the previously hard to invest in gemstones. And they said that they saw the large spike in its marketplace after the banks started to shut down. Kind of a good little thing to know in case this ever happens again. So our investors, they say, who very often have gold in their portfolios, see diamonds as something that is uncorrelated to other assets, providing them an opportunity for diversification and hedging, he said. And then he notes this is the founder of this company. And he said that the price of diamonds is still catching up with other precious metals, which is opening doors for investors to participate in its appreciation. So I found that to be pretty interesting. And they
Yeah.
also noted that most of the buyers are existing customers, which include individuals, family offices, and some smaller hedge funds. Kind of nice. And then during the chaotic weekend, the Diamond Standard, it's a peer-to-peer marketplace with a centralized limit order book, remained open 24/7 and handled a major jump in volume. So kind of interesting. Have you ever heard of tokenized diamonds or anybody investing in that?
No, I've heard nobody investing in that. I think I've heard of it before, and which is kind of interesting. Yeah, people jumped into anything that's tokenized, right? So that's kind of crazy in a way because if you think of the average public, they're afraid of crypto in any area, right? Or they were, or I find it really interesting that Bitcoin jumped up a lot. So that kind of makes sense that Bitcoin's about the only one that the average person might have heard about that isn't really into crypto or doesn't own any. But there was a push into Bitcoin for sure. That didn't surprise me too much. But yeah, that tokenized diamonds, which seems kind of out there, kind of wow. That's you know not many people at all have ever heard of that. So that must have been crypto people, or maybe people that are into precious gems and so on. They're like, this might have been a new thing for them. Although I wonder why they just didn't buy diamonds. Why did they buy tokenized diamonds? So that a little bit of a nuance there, but and so this is where my frame of reference is coming from. I've been really thinking about and looking at, okay, what is it about crypto that is so scary for people, right? And part of it is the media, part of it is the government, part of it is traditional finance. None of those entities are big fans of crypto. So they're always, talking bad about it. And then I look at this banking crisis, which it's so fascinating because, okay, we've been talking a lot in the crypto community about what? About the fact that we believe Bitcoin and crypto to be the next area in finance, to be a place that is better than traditional finance, and we're hypothesizing that Bitcoin and crypto is a safer, almost better asset to be in than anything else in traditional finance, right? So that's most crypto people's view. And then you've got, like I said before, you've got the average people that are kind of afraid of it because there's not a lot of good things to say about it because people are looking at it only as a volatile risk on asset and mostly just Bitcoin, right? And they don't know a lot about it. So here you have this banking crisis that is this really tangible, in your face, like in everyone's face, crisis. And even though it is sort of averted and the government stepped in, isn't that kind of what crypto people are saying? In the end, that's not good. We don't want to have our assets in a bank or in something that can fail and go bankrupt, right? And can shut down our withdrawals. We don't like that. And then two, the government comes in and saves the day. Okay, that's kind of a good thing, but that also means now the government has control. And we don't like that either, right? So now you have these things right in the forefront of people's faces on the news, everything. And then over here, maybe some people heard, a few of our podcasts or a few of, anything in crypto and said, there's this Bitcoin thing, they keep saying it is a better asset because no one can deny access to it if you have it in your wallet, right? Maybe I should try that. And so they try it. And I find that really interesting. So that's my frame of reference. And then to hear that tokenized diamonds, which is sort of out there for me, it's like, wow, okay, I've heard of things can be tokenized, and I guess, gold I know is tokenized. I guess diamonds can be. And it went up. So I think, it's so interesting. That's an interesting article because, wow, who were those people? Were they crypto people? Were they gem people? but it doesn't matter. It's a good news, because that is an article that we can push out there and say, hey, look, people are saying tokenized assets are a better place to be. So there you go.
Right.
That's my
Yeah.
that's my that's my
Great
point of view on
breakdown.
that.
Yeah. And, I think that's a good point too, that, why one question that you raised there is why not just buy diamonds rather than tokenized diamonds? And that's, the ease of is one reason. Same thing with when we hear the comparisons between Bitcoin and gold. You're able to buy, you're not having to buy a full amount of something. You're able to put in as little as you want to put in. And that's the same thing when we see this tokenized real estate, then that's happening. You're able to put in $100 for specific things, and just, it's really opens up the door for many things. But I think you also had a point in the fact that with these banks, and if you haven't seen anything on Operation Choke Point, then that's kind of something as well that is a huge, whether the banks saved the day, or did they begin this whole thing, because what they're really wanting to do is just take off all the on ramps when it comes to banks taking in crypto. And that's another thing that I read is I believe it was with Signature Bank. The person that comes in and whoever's going to take that over has to vow that they will never mess with crypto in their bank. That's part of their stipulation. So, we'll see how it plays out, but it seems as if, from what I've read, at least with Silvergate, that there's just more to it than what completely meets the eye, and that these on ramps and having crypto become integrated into the banking system is just something that the regulators do not want to see, and so they're really trying to make sure that doesn't happen. So it's all very interesting, but like you said, Bitcoin did not take a hit, really. So
It went
that is.
up. That's the thing. It went up. Hey, Sandy. Yeah, Sandy. I think a tokenized diamond would look really good on you. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's fun. Yeah, Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin went up. In fact, let's take a look at that real quick here. Let me share my screen here. Yeah, and this is part of what we talked about, crypto rallies, which is awesome. And let's switch over here to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin right now is at 26,836, and it's interesting because in my analysis, technical analysis, I'm learning, technical analysis in trading. So I follow a bunch of people, and a lot of them were saying if it hits 26, it could go up to 30. There's not a lot of space, not a lot of resistance or any history in Bitcoin that says once you pop past 26, it could go to 30. So that's I'm excited to see if this really happens. But here's this is the 24-hour chart. So look at what it did today, just boom.
Yes.
And I was trying to look at some of the news to see why today, other than I think it's just the continuation of this narrative that Bitcoin is a good place to be. And, the question that I haven't been able to find out yet, if anybody knows, chime in. And that is, are these primarily new people coming into Bitcoin, or are these people that are already into crypto and that are moving maybe some USDC, which took a hit, into Bitcoin? Now, I know that happened early on, like when USDC took its hit and got down to 87 or whatever it was. I heard a lot of people were putting that into Bitcoin, which I also think is really funny and interesting. This is a really interesting time in crypto because things don't quite make sense because, right, Bitcoin's volatile. And, if you have your money in USDC, it's probably because you wanted a stable asset you were going to do something with. And so then when the so-called stable asset becomes unstable or volatile, drops its value or its price, you move into Bitcoin, one of the uh, I guess if you're in crypto, the way I look at it is Bitcoin is pretty stable, but overall it's a volatile asset. Now other cryptos may be more volatile, but so that's kind of cool and weird and different. And then you've got this. So are people, yeah, are we gaining new people? That's what I want to know.
That's a good
That's what
question.
I'm hoping. That's what I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
that's a really good question. And I know there is a trading platform. I can't remember what it's called. That has those tools that you can see the amount of you can see the whales, you can see the hodlers, and the percentages. It's really interesting. I haven't used it myself, but I'm in a group where somebody does go really deep into that, and it's super interesting. Um, but it would be nice to know right now for the specific time where it's all
Yeah.
coming from. I agree.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of those that stuff. These charts, sometimes make my eyes cross over, but those things where they just break down all that kind of stuff, and I think it'll get better and better, but those still give me a headache. And whale watching and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, wow.
Uh,
And people do
yeah,
that. People spend a lot of time doing that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
all right, what else you got here? What do you got?
Okay, let's go over to what
Brianna.
Charles has to say. Yeah, let's go to Charles. And this is just real quick, but I thought this was interesting. So, Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson says crypto should cut ties with the banks. So I like this. Just he's just switching. He's just switching it from what they say to us to what we can say to them. So what he points out though is that the moment that we can digitize treasuries, it's game over for the banks. He says.
Wow. Yeah.
So he believes the crypto industry should differentiate itself from the unstable and volatile banking sector.
Hmm.
And as we just touched on, those three banks that went down, they were shut down by regulators earlier this month, propelling severe losses for numerous crypto-focused firms. Um, he states that crypto needs to de-risk itself from those unstable and volatile banks. And then a couple of points that he hits at were some that we have already hit on. However, there's a couple more to add to that. The crypto exchange Coinbase said it held $240 million worth in corporate cash at Signature Bank, while Paxos had $250 million exposure. The president of the United States, Joe Biden, said earlier this week that Americans should have confidence in the domestic banking network, describing it as safe. I don't know about you, but the word safe coming from anybody from our government, I believe, is just quite the opposite.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm starting to. I mean, it's been, yeah, I won't go further into that, but maybe you agree, maybe you don't. But
No,
it
I
seems to
agree.
be, not,
It's interesting.
not
I
only
mean,
that, but oh, go for it. Go ahead.
no, I'm just saying but that's what we've always lived with, and if you think about it, that's what fiat is, right? Fiat is only worth a dollar's only worth a dollar because the government says so, and we believe the government will make good on that, right? So I mean, it's in our whole history of how money in the banking system is created, and it just brings up that thought. You know, it's this is it's ingrained. It's what am I trying to say? Buried, in the way we grew up, the way we learned in school, everything about this. So, it's not surprising that this new money, this crypto, it's going to take a while to get up to speed. So yeah, but that's the thing, and that's why right now is the most interesting time since I've been in crypto, because we have these bank failures. Now this has happened before, but it always just kind of the government comes in, or we say they spend all this money, or they print money, or they do whatever. Mostly the taxpayers, we have to pay that, but life goes on, right? And new news and new things go on, and then here we are again. But we haven't had a bank failure like this with crypto ever before, because the last time the major bank failed was in 2008,
Right.
and now we have crypto. So this is a really interesting time to see what's going to happen and all these new narratives, because we didn't have this narrative about crypto and about this new financial system. So this could be the best thing for crypto. We'll see. I mean, Bitcoin is liking it.
It is. Yeah, it's reacting really well. And I think, too, like for all of us, I think it's an opportunity when we hear that word. I mean, for myself at least, we hear the word safe coming from. I mean, that was also, it doesn't just lie within the government. That was something that Sam Bankman Fried was saying, your funds are safe. I mean, we've heard that
Yeah.
True. And I think that that's just an indicator that we have to do our due diligence. I mean, you can only do it so far, but just taking that for what it is isn't enough. You gotta, if you really want to know and you really want to kind of take that ownership over your finances and just over your choices when it comes to them, like we have to, it just goes to show that you really have to do some research and you really got to kind of get down to the nitty gritty of a lot of things to try to figure it out rather than just taking someone's word for it. Um, but okay, I'll move on to that. From that, I know I got caught up on that one. So
Is that right? Good. I like it when you
uh,
go down the rabbit hole because usually it's me. So go for it.
and then so Charles Hoskins. Okay, he also touched upon the crash of SVB, assuring that no losses will be borne by the taxpayers. On the other hand, investors in the institution will lose their funds because that's how capitalism works, the political leader outlined.
Hmm.
So, oh, okay, wait. This is where I'm confused. Are those three statements from Joe Biden, those last bullet points? The President of the United States said that the funds are safe. He also touched upon the crash. Those are three different bullet points, but actually, I think that this is all three supposed to be from Joe Biden, not from those last
Yeah.
two ones are Joe Biden as well.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha. Okay.
Well, and I think that that's interesting. He gets the president's always going to get grief one way or the other, but he got grief, for this a little bit. And actually, if you're a crypto person, you're like, yeah, right, safe. They're not that safe. Two, what he was interesting is he was saying, yeah, that the taxpayers aren't going to bear this loss or the losses for this but we'll see. I don't know. And how capitalism works. And he wanted to distance himself or this decision from the '08 crisis where the government did bail out all the banks and then the bankers, were still making huge bonuses and, all this money, right? Uh, and yet a lot of people suffered right from that. A lot of the average people were suffering. So he wanted to make a big deal out of that. So we'll see what happens. But either way, from a crypto standpoint, you know, it all points to a very weak system that is teetering on a thread. And that's the other thing that came to my mind was how fragile the banking system is, the traditional financial system is, the stock markets, because it's all this rumor and hearsay and news, and the stock market's always looking out into the future, what's going to happen, and so it's it's thinking, okay, what's the Fed going to do? What are interest rates going to do? And then these banks are crashing in at first, you know, but it reacted pretty quick actually this time. The market fell, big time. Crypto fell a little bit too, and then people are like, oh, okay, the world's not coming to an end, and they're like, hey, maybe I should get into Bitcoin or something. I don't know.
Mhm. Oh, it
So
does. It goes real quick. I remember with the USDC when that was depegged, and I was like, oh my gosh, do I share this? Like, I'm like, do I share this with my group or do I keep it? Because is this, oh, you don't want to be like someone who's going to start something where people are pulling stuff out. But then on the other hand, you're like, because that's how it starts, that panic. You're like, oh,
yeah,
USDC lost its peg. But of course, you're like, man, I would want someone to tell me if I'm like sitting here taking a day off, doing my thing and USDC, I have like my, everything stored in USDC and I'm not knowing that it's been depegged and there's a chance, that it could, whatever could happen. Um, Whether or not you
one thing.
sound the alarm, it can create like a sense of
Yeah,
panic or,
yeah. No, it's a good point. It's a really good point because you don't want to feed into it. Other than though, you know, the, part of all of this is markets respond. There's really nothing individually I think you can do, and I don't mean that shouldn't be a negative, powerless feeling. It's just that markets are very powerful. They work on human psychology, and in the masses, right? So, and it's the way that it works. It's that if there's panic and fear, you're like, I got to be the first to get my money out because I don't want to be that person at the end of the block that can't get their money out, right? And if you don't do that, if you don't think that way, you're going to get burned. Maybe, I mean, in this case, like I was thinking the same thing, and I was trying to figure out, okay, do I have a plan? Because I have a lot of USDC in my DeFi, in different liquidity farms, and I'm like, what do I do? And I didn't have a plan, and so this was kind of good, and so I thought to myself, I need to write out a very specific plan in case this happens again. Well, or when, because markets are markets. This is going to happen again. And what I'll do and what I'll look for, and not make a panic rush decision. But I've heard this before, and I felt helpless watching this. It reminded me of when Luna crashed. I didn't know as much about crypto as I do now, and I'm not sure that anything really helped me right now, because if USDC had gone down and crashed, I'd have been in the same boat. But I remember hearing, because it was about a 3-day crash for UST, and it just kind of slowly went down. And I remember watching it and just feeling so helpless, like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? Should I get out? Should I just, it'll stabilize? Should I stay here? And I remember feeling the same thing a little about USDC. Now, I'll tell you what got me, Brianna, was not so much, I really felt it was going to come back. I really was like, man, I just think it's going to come back, because Circle quickly came out and said, look, yeah, we do have this $3 billion that was tied up in Silicon Valley Bank, but we've got 40 billion in assets, 40 billion, right? And so we can get to that. So don't panic. It's like, and so that pretty quickly stopped the crazy panic. And then it was just another couple of days, or a day maybe, where then the government stepped in and everything kind of settled down. But here's what I thought. I thought to myself, why does a stablecoin that is pegged to the dollar to assets that are in liquid assets? So they're in treasuries, right? Which they get out. They're liquid. And I thought, well, if that's the case, why is it depegged? Why is it going down? And then I had to look at markets like the stock exchanges, and the centralized exchanges like Coinbase and all the exchanges work the same way, right? And that is, right now it says $1. And there's a whole bunch of people that started selling their USDC on these markets, right? And so there's sell order, sell, sell, sell. Now, if you ever looked at like an order book on, these exchanges, you've got sells and buy orders, and basically they just keep evening out. But it's how the markets work, right? And if there are more sellers than buyers, the price will continue to go down. So it's like, here's $1. Does anybody want to buy it? No. How about 99? Nope. How about 98? Nope. How about 97? And it just keeps dropping until somebody says, okay, at 87 cents, I'll buy. And then it evens out. And somebody says, and then that price just moves back up. And I thought, wow, because that makes sense to me with like Bitcoin or any other coin, right? Because there is nothing necessarily asset-wise backing it up, right? It's strictly supply and demand in a way, right? Bitcoin could fall to zero because nobody believed it was good or that it had value. That could realistically happen. And I didn't equate that the same with a stablecoin, because I'm like, but they're backed up by $1. I could always have this $1, but it didn't matter because it's all freaking digital, right? And there are no dollars in your hand, and you're literally looking at a screen and you're saying, well, I know they say it's backed up by $1, but I'm not sure I believe them. I'm not going to buy, or I'm going to sell. And if there are more sellers than buyers, the price goes down. That was weird to me. And yet, again, now I feel like I really understand it all better. So it's, in a way, I like these kind of things because as long as I'm not exposed or losing money, I always learn so much from them.
That's interesting. So what do you see happen? So how did it make its way back up in your view? How did somebody come in and say, okay, like this is going down, I need to put a ton in here to like in USDC to bring this back up? Like, how does that work its way back up to where it's pegged again?
In my view, what happened is once Circle came out and said, so what happened with the USDC was interesting because all of this was kind of together with the banking crisis, but they were kind of separate things. Um, well, no, I guess they weren't because what happened was when Silicon Valley crashed or went bankrupt, Circle came out and said that they were exposed. They had $3.3 billion in Silicon Valley Bank, right? So when they said that, people are like, holy shit, that $3 billion, you can't get to that. So I don't know if USDC is a safe place. And they started to sell. They moved it. They're like, I'm gonna get it in Bitcoin, right? So people started selling their or going to Tether. A lot of people actually moved it to Tether, right? So at that point, that's why it went down. There were more sellers than buyers. Then Circle came out and said, yeah, we have that exposure, but we've got $40 billion in treasury bills. So there's always going to be, if you, and then it said everybody that wants out can get out if they want, right? We have dollar back. So if you sell, there will be a dollar there. There will never be a point where you try to sell and there won't be an asset there, or you can't get it, right? And so that's what it did. Then people were like, oh, okay, so I won't sell, and some other people started buying. Now, here's another interesting thing. When it dropped its peg, especially down into the 80s, but also like 95, arbitrageurs started to come in and buy because they're like, hell, I'll buy it 87 or 90, and when it gets back up to a dollar, then I'll sell and I'll just make a profit. So that pushed it up too. And that's the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to work on an arbitrage thing, but only like a penny or two, because USDC will go down to 99. Sometimes it goes up to 101. And again, it's just kind of but that keeps it stable. So that's, in my mind, what happened. It wasn't that Circle infused anything or did anything. They just said, look, the assets are here. So that's probably a simplistic view of it, but I think that's what happened.
So I'm really curious, just to finish this off, because we've kind of come to this. I know both you and I have talked about this before, where we felt like USDC is kind of the safe stable coin. Like we felt pretty comfortable there. Here I go using that word safe, and just remember that doesn't mean anything. but what we saw. Okay, so when this happened, Tether's market cap doubled USDC's. That's what happened over this last week. I personally have never used Tether. I have maybe like little tiny bits, but I'm more drawn to it now than I've ever been. But I also know there's some kind of gray area with their history. But moving forward, what do you see for USDC and Tether? Do you think that people are going to be like, okay, I think I'm just going to move over to Tether and stay here? Or like, do you have any feelings like that? Do you feel comfortable on USDC? Do you think it's going to just kind of be good to go and kind of just not really be a thing that this happened?
Think it's good. I actually think it's in a better place now than it was before, because they were able to show, and in a very big way, here's our assets. Here's what we got. The scare was because people didn't really know. And yeah, they did have, and it was funny because there are some people that said that, why did you have $3 billion in a bank when only 250,000 of it's insured? And actually, this is an interesting question. Another question a lot of people are asking now. When only 250,000 is insured, you had $3 billion in a bank? So I'm not sure that was the smartest thing, although I'm not sure I understand all the nuance there, because I think Jeremy Allaire and Circle, I think they're pretty smart. And I think that yeah. So I'm not sure I understand that unless that was an oversight. Oh, you know what? That's right. I did. I saw a podcast actually that Jeremy was on there. And this is probably a little bit of cleaning up that he was doing, but apparently they were in the process just before all this happened of moving a lot of their assets into multiple banks, because they did see this as an exposure or something. And I don't know, this is what he said. It seems a little far-fetched, but that's what he said, is that they were in the process of this, and literally maybe days, maybe hours before they were able to distribute all of their assets into multiple banks so that they wouldn't be exposed to that much in any one bank, Silicon Valley crashed. And so he said, we were already in the process of doing this. We still have the 40 billion over here, but we've got very liquid assets in cash in multiple banks now. And we were in the process of doing that, and then we got caught. You kind of, he didn't really say it that way, but so I guess what it tells me is Circle is still the most open about their assets. Tether is not. There are questions behind Tether's assets. And to me, why? Why aren't you just completely open with it like USD is trying to be? Now, I'm putting my faith in them, and then a lot of times you do that, and then they let you down. So far, Circle really has not. Their issue to me was fine. This was caught up in all this craziness. I'm still a huge USDC fan. And in fact, I have a little bit of Tether. Just sometimes you have to move stuff around or whatever. But yeah, I'm still big on USDC.
Well,
yeah. All right. Let me see what I got here. Let me turn. I got. Oh yeah. I'm excited about this. Okay, so Arbitrum is a layer 2 network that sits on top of Ethereum, and it's been around for a year, if not more. But this, one of the nice things about this year during the bear market was a lot of these crypto projects, layer 1s and layer 2s, had time to really work. And Arbitrum and Optimism and Polygon are all layer 2s that are amazing. They make transactions fast. Their gas prices are really low. And for me, when I'm working in DeFi, I may be doing 5 to 10 to 20 different transactions in a day. And on Ethereum, I literally try never to use Ethereum straight. I always, if there's an Arbitrum option, and a lot of these smart contracts are now all moving to these layer 2s, meaning that if I want to do a liquidity position on a DeFi protocol, if all they have, if they're just on Ethereum alone, it's going to cost me sometimes $30 to make a $1 transaction, which I just won't do, obviously. And sometimes I have to wait until 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever and make that transaction, because at that time it's the cheapest because the network's not as full. And there are times where I just have to. I have to move some money out of Ethereum into these other blockchains so that I can then do these transactions. And so I can't quite get away from it. But that being said, more and more smart contracts are all they're all available on Arbitrum and Optimism. So that's great. So these layer 2s are doing great. And Arbitrum, back up. Optimism dropped their token about 6-8 months ago. And what they do is they reward their loyal users with airdrops. And so when they do this, we'll go back to this. Yeah, when they do this, if you've been doing transactions on the Arbitrum or Optimism network, they'll just airdrop. They'll say, look, hey, we're going to drop our token. And now people can invest in Arbitrum as an asset, as a token that they think will go up, just like Bitcoin, right? Same thing with Optimism. And so anyways, that part of that is that about 5 months ago, I had working with my coach that in yield farming came out with this whole new thing. He said, look, we're gonna do what's called airdrop farming, and we're going to look at protocols that don't have a token yet that may eventually drop one, and we're going to put transactions on that network, hoping that if they do drop a token, we'll get rewarded with free tokens, free airdrops. And so that Arbitrum being the biggest one, and the one that I have done the most transactions on, in very small amounts, like $1, $2, $3 transactions, right? But a bunch of them. So that when they looked at that, they're like, oh yeah, this guy, he's a loyal user. Boom, we're going to drop him free tokens. The Optimism one, that people that did this, I think it was $2,000 or $3,000 like per wallet, and boom. So I have 5 wallets I've done this over. So I'm hoping I get $1,000 per wallet address. So this $5,000 just boom dropped into my wallet.
That's
I
really cool. So,
apparent
and you've been
Yeah.
doing
So
that for a
apparently,
while, right? That's been going.
yeah,
You've been doing
about
that for a few months.
well
So
about 4 or 5 months. Yeah, and and this is the thing about this: you never really know when they are going to drop the token or when they're going to take what's called a snapshot when they look at their network and say, okay, here's all the activity, and we're going to reward these wallets with whatever. You never know. So we thought Arbitrum was going to drop at the first of the year. So we were hurrying to get a bunch of transactions then, and now it's finally in March dropping. Apparently, I don't know if it's I think it's Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, so whatever. But here's the thing that's interesting about it. This is a big deal. Like everybody right now knows, and a lot of people are like, "Well, Arbitrum, when are they going to drop their token?" Which invites a lot of scammers. So there's lots of crooks out there that are trying to pretend, and they can just drop tokens into your wallet, right? Like we've talked about this airdrop thing, and say, "Hey, look, this is your, all your token." Well, and it's fake, right? And then you say, "Oh, hey, great." You sign off on your wallet that you accept those. You've opened up the wallet to that particular smart contract, and now it can access, and then they can take your funds, all of your funds out of your wallet. So this is a really interesting situation. So you got to be very careful with this kind of stuff. And so I wouldn't be doing this on my own. I've got a coach that is very diligent about this, and he's like, to us, he's like, don't do anything. He's like, until I tell you and give you the address and the contract and whatever, don't do anything, because you're going to see so many scams coming out right now. So it's just kind of interesting, to see. So also, he wasn't as what's the word, as positive. Like he wasn't sure that like all of our wallets were going to get rewarded. And so I'm a little skeptical now, thinking that, again, this is all, there's no science to this at all. This is even crazier and out there than, even crypto or yield farming, because there's just no history, and you never really know what's going to go on, right? And with the internet, everybody's got an opinion about everything, right? So he had a method he was following, probably from following somebody else, about these are the kind of transactions that they will like and that you should do. But he wasn't sure. So it's possible that some of the transactions we spent a lot of time on aren't going to qualify us. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just really almost excited just to see if I get anything. I may get Zippo, but it was fun and worth my time. And like I said, it wasn't that much money. It was really more about time. It took a lot of time to do this. So
yeah, that's
yeah,
cool. You got the experience with it. And you would think, I mean, one thing that comes to mind to me if I was going to open one of those up would be to have it. I mean, you have 5 wallets, like you said. So do you have them like designated, or will you have like no other funds on that wallet other than that?
yeah,
That would be
yeah.
a
They're
way to avoid
yeah.
anything, move things out before opening that airdrop, maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, and that is actually that is a good point, because I set up, well, that makes me think. So it's all in a MetaMask wallet. It's all under my MetaMask account. But in MetaMask, you can create multiple wallet addresses, hundreds, and I'm pretty sure that each address is like locked in. Like if I were to give them access to one of these wallet, and I just name them, airdrop 1, 2, 3, where you can name your wallet addresses. That they'd only be able to get anything in there, and there's really not that much money. So if it was a fake and they were able to take that out of there, there wasn't much money in there, which is true. But again, I don't know. Some of this stuff you don't really know. Could they somehow get access to my whole MetaMask account? I don't think so, but I don't know. So it's just something that I hadn't really thought about. But yeah. Anyway, so that's fun. We'll see. I'll report back next week, hopefully, what happened. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. All right, so let's talk about ChatGPT. Well, not really about ChatGPT, but let's talk about this cool little headline. How much energy do AI and ChatGPT use? No one knows for sure. I like that. No one knows for sure. But this is something to think about, right? That Bitcoin's getting all proof of work, and Bitcoin's getting all this flack about being using so much energy and bad for the environment. Well, what about these guys? So this article, not going to go into a lot of it, and there's no there's no answer here, but this is a question people are going to start asking. It says the creation of every new chatbot and image generator requires a lot of electricity, which means the technology may be responsible for massive and growing amounts of planet warming carbon. So that's kind of the statement. Microsoft and Alphabet, ChatGPT, OpenAI, they use cloud computing that relies on thousands of chips inside servers and massive data centers across the globe to train AI algorithms called models, analyzing data to help them learn to perform these tasks. So one thing that I got out of this was interesting is they basically, the way I understood this is that when they're training these models, right? So if most people probably have this concept, down now, but it's like they created these software programs, right, to just go out and scan the internet, right? Look at everything on the internet and then come back and process it. So it has all these data points in a logical way that when people ask it questions, all that data got crunched and can now easily flow to an answer. It can process that. So I guess during that model creation, that's when it uses a ton of energy, right? And I don't know if that's 5 days, 10 days, whatever, right? 10 months, I don't know how long it takes. Then once it's done, then the next step is, okay, now it's sitting there and we're just waiting for people to query the database or whatever, query it. And I don't know if that takes as much energy. I think it's during that model making. I don't know, but that's how I see it. And the reason that might be important is once, when people start really getting into this, again, the whole Bitcoin concept of how much energy it uses is a little bit still unknown. There are people that say that it doesn't affect global warming at all because they're using renewable for the most part. And when you compare it to how much all the office, lights and computing power and all the other place, no one's done a really good comparison that I've seen of what about all these businesses that are doing other intensive ones. This one now, because it's got so much attention, is kind of maybe the same as Bitcoin, right? So now overall, I want the planet to be, safe, and I don't want all this energy carbon creating, to happen with Bitcoin or with this. So hopefully just by noting this and getting it out there, people are going to say, okay, we need to start looking at this. How can we do this with less electricity? So
that's interesting. It's gonna be kind of, I think, the topic of the decade when it comes to energy consumption for everything. So, and I really get so lost with it all. I mean, I don't know, but there is I did a video a while back there were 2 different studies done for Bitcoin energy, and one was from Cambridge University, and this is one that's pretty much set up to how they want you to. The results are only on Bitcoin, and they don't look at all of those other variables like you just pointed out. And then there was another independent study done that was taking all of the banks and actual buildings and the electricity used and just all of that other thing, and it just pointed to some different answers. But yeah, when it comes to AI and all this other stuff, I mean, gosh, it's just so above my head. And I agree, like, you don't want, I don't know, energy in general. It's just like, I don't know. I could go off on this one, but I don't know. I can't, I don't know. I think there's people that are going to use it for, if AI is something that is so valuable to whoever kind of makes the rules, then we'll probably see that the energy usage is not so bad, but right. Whatever picture wants to be painted. Or I know that El Salvador, right, they've figured out ways to use their volcano for energy production.
Really?
For Bitcoin.
Oh, dude, you got to get that one. Bring that article. Find that article. Bring that.
I'll bring that up next week. I'll bring that up next week.
Yeah, you're the El Salvador girl.
I am.
We rely on you to bring us all El Salvador news. And that one's kind of cool, right? We're using a volcano to mine Bitcoin. How cool is that? That is cool.
Really cool.
So, but you make a good point there. It's like, who do you trust? How do you, today's media world is so polarized and our political world is so polarized. It's just hard to trust anybody. So my point is, what I do is I've got an opinion, a point of view that's mine. But what I try to do, instead of just going off and saying anything that I see that supports my view, I'm going to spout off. What I try to do is at least get another viewpoint. If I really probably should get more, and this takes time though. It takes time. But I really value that, as I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be this polarized person that is only looks at one side of the equation, right? And I think I'm lucky because most people are just trying to get through the day and make a living and, feed the kids and whatever. And it makes me sad because it's really hard to have an objective point of view, because you're getting a clip here and there, and that's just about as much as you can get when you're dealing with all the stuff that life has to do, right? And unfortunately, it's bias. It just is. It's just bias. So you have to, if you really want to be unbiased as much as you can, it takes a lot of time and effort, and most people don't have it. So I don't have a good solution. For me, I try to do that, and I'm not always perfect at it. But and I did. I even slipped kind of in here. I basically said people are giving Bitcoin a hard time about this. Well, what about AI? That statement alone kind of shows my bias for Bitcoin, right? It's like, leave Bitcoin alone. Quit saying that it sucking up all this energy. But I don't know for sure necessarily. And the reason I brought that article up was because I just want to at least say, hey, there's two sides of this debate too, right? There's other places instances that are using up a lot of energy too. But I did come back and say, I'm not sure what the answer is, because I'm not happy if either one of them are polluting the planet, right? So I just want people to look at not only Bitcoin, but also AI and all the other high energy producing, carbon producing technology. I don't know what to call it, and let's fix it.
Yeah.
So another rant. That's my rant.
And I think how far can you go to really find the truth? I mean, can you really continue? The more you dig and dig and dig, the less you know. And,
true.
It's just one of those things. It's like the further you dig into something too, you can lose perspective of the whole. I mean, it's a never ending battle. I mean, it's a tough world out there, but I think ultimately, I am really trying to just be adaptable and not draw too many conclusions. You can't draw conclusions on something that you truly cannot find the truth to. I mean, you can take as many people as you want. I mean, there is something to be said about having people who you trust, and people who have done their research that you feel like you can trust, and kind of look at the bigger picture of where the information's coming from, what their goals are. But really finding like a distinctive truth from anything outside of ourselves is impossible. So I mean, just trying to be adaptable.
This is now the philosophy show. This is philosophy talk with Brianna and Scott. But it is interesting, and that's why we've connected. I like talking about this kind of stuff with you, because we both sort of have that. Hold on. We both have that view, right? That we've got our own opinions, but we really want to have a neutral view, or not come across like the extremists, and even there I'm judging, but it's just the way I am. And you do the best you can, and you find your trusted sources that align with you, like who you are, and then you have to kind of go with it, because you're right. You could go down these rabbit holes forever, and then they can get weird. They can get conspiracy-ish on you.
Weird real quick. They get weird really quick.
Right. So that's another really good point. Like, how far do you go to find the truth? And yet, so I don't know. I guess it always comes back to what you're comfortable with. And I just think most people don't think about how one-sided they really are. and how, because if they did, because I mean, I inherently believe philosophy. I inherently believe people are good and they're doing the best that they can do with the situation that they have. That's kind of one of my mottos, my philosophies in life. And, if I take that and yet the stuff I hear out of people's mouths and social media, I'm just like, what? And I think the people just don't take the time to even think about that, how biased they are and how extreme one side or the other. But I come back and I bail them out by saying it's hard. Life's hard out there. The world's tough out there. It's like the whole thing about eating healthy. And maybe this is because I'm weak, but I think it's hard to eat healthy. I mean, it's so easy to eat bad and unhealthy. They make it so easy. It's cheaper. It's faster. It's quicker. It tastes better. It's hard to. You've got to, at least for me, because I don't like to cook. I mean, I've got to do stuff I don't want to do to eat healthy. I've got to work at it. And maybe that's good. But
Yeah.
we'll have to do another podcast. We'll have to do a whole nother one.
Yeah. This is right up my alley.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe you should have me on your show. We'll do a philosophical one, and we'll do just on
Let's
that.
do it.
All right. On
Let's do
purified
it.
people. Yeah.
We'll do it. Absolutely.
All right. Well, you got anything else, or have we covered pretty much everything today?
That's it. I mean, I have to say, this morning I listened to some technical analysis. I know you touched on that with Bitcoin, and I'm feeling pretty bullish right now on and I mean, long term always, but there are some markers that were hit that just are some good signs, and really just optimistic after it surviving and even kind of thriving through what's happened. It's really good to see. I'm excited for that. So yeah, that's where I'm at, leaving off on a good note.
Yeah. Me too.
And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
How about you? Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah. No, just agreeing with you. I feel bullish. Like I said, this is an interesting time to be into crypto. And I think, I was going to say, and maybe even, to be really paying attention to finances and investment. But if you're a traditional, all in on traditional, it's not such a fun time for you.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
But that's why we're here. Like, come on over. Come on over. It's
Yeah.
not really the dark side. It's the light side.
I know, it's so interesting. And I'm sorry, I've cut you off. I've been cutting you off a lot today, but I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, well, I've heard good things, I've heard bad things. Like, tell me about this crypto stuff. It's still, and then there's other people who are like, oh, freedom and this stuff, that's so 2016. You guys are still talking about how it's freedom. And it's like, no, like the majority of the world still has not caught up to the fact of that. Like, and so still just the basics of what it all is. And once you kind of have that conversation and really simplify it down, maybe that's something else we can do again next week, just as a refresher as to just what it is. And, for me, there's somewhat of an urgency. You hope that more people catch on to it, and why it's so hard to grasp, I don't know, but there's something missing there for until it just your eyes are open to it. But
Yeah.
so it's interesting.
Yeah.
Where I was going with
agree.
that.
No, I've been really resonating with that a lot lately, and really like, what is it? Why doesn't everybody get it? And I'm coming at like, what are we doing wrong in the crypto industry? Like, what are we doing wrong? Why aren't more people getting it? But on the other hand, it's just, man, when you get it, you get it, and until you do, I don't know. That sounds stupid, but it's what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get on. We're gonna get on out of here. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you're watching this on replay, just drop us a comment and let us know if you like it. Share it with your friends, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.